Long ago, when the earth was still soft under the feet of travelers and the wind carried stories from one village to another, there stood a quiet and humble village called Kijiji Chomwanga, a place where the mornings were filled with the sound of roosters calling the sun and the evenings were filled with laughter, drums, and stories told by elders whose voices were slow, deep, and full of wisdom. In that village, people lived close to the land, planting millet in the red soil, fetching water from the river Nuru that curved like a shining snake across the plains, and raising their children to respect the elders, the spirits, and the truth that a good heart is better than a heavy pocket of gold. In this village lived a man named Baraka, a merchant whose name was known far beyond Kijiji Chomwanga, because he traveled long roads where dust rose like smoke behind his feet, and he traded goods from distant lands such as salt from the dry desert, bright cloth from coastal towns, bees that shimmered like drops of rain, and carved wood that told silent stories of the forest. Baraka was not born rich, but through hard work and clever trading he built a life that many admired, and his house stood larger than most, with strong wooden doors, white clay walls, and a storage room filled with goods stacked carefully like a small market of his own. Yet inside Baraka lived a hunger that no food could satisfy and no sleep could quiet, because his heart had grown attached to one thing more than anything else, and that thing was gold, shining gold, heavy gold, gold that glowed in firelight and whispered power into the ears of those who held it. Every day Baraka counted his coins, and every night he dreamed of more, and even when people greeted him with respect and friendship, his mind wandered to thoughts of how he could gain more gold, how he could become richer than every trader in every village across the land. The elders of Kijiji Chomwanga watched him with quiet concern, especially Mzee Juma, the oldest man in the village, whose back was bent like an old tree but whose eyes still saw deeper than the river and farther than the horizon. One evening, as the sky turned orange and the cooking fires began to glow, Mzee Juma called Baraka to sit beside him, and the children gathered close because they knew that when the elder spoke, there was always something important to learn. Mzee Juma spoke slowly, his voice calm like still water, and he told Baraka that a man who chases gold too much may one day find that he has lost something he cannot buy back, something that no market can sell and no trader can carry. But Baraka smiled politely and nodded as if he understood, though inside his heart he believed the elder was simply afraid of wealth. And as he stood to leave, he said gently that gold was not something to fear but something to seek, because gold could build houses, bring respect, and make a man strong in the eyes of others. Days passed, and one evening Baraka set out on a long journey to trade in a distant place called Kisiwa Market, where traders from many lands gathered, speaking different tongues and bringing goods from mountains, rivers, forests, and deserts. The journey was long, and the sun was hot, and the road stretched endlessly like a brown ribbon across the land, but Baraka walked with determination, dreaming of the gold he would gain from this journey. After many days of trading, Baraka began his return home, and as he walked along one evening when the sun was sinking low and the shadows were growing long across the ground, he came upon a great and ancient baobab tree, its trunk wide and strong, its branches reaching into the sky like the hands of an old giant who had stood there since the beginning of time. Beneath that tree sat a stranger, a man whose presence felt both calm and strange, as if he did not fully belong to the world of ordinary men. Beside the stranger rested a small wooden chest, and from that chest came a soft golden glow, like the last light of sunset trapped inside a box. Baraka felt his heart beat faster. He stepped closer. He greeted the man, and he asked what treasure was hidden inside that glowing chest. The stranger looked at him slowly, then opened the lid just enough for Baraka to see inside, and in that moment Baraka's breath caught in his throat, because inside the chest lay gold, beautiful gold coins, shining brighter than anything he had ever seen, as if the sun itself had been broken into pieces and placed gently inside that small wooden box. Baraka's voice became eager and sharp, and he told the stranger that he wanted to buy the chest, that he would give anything, that he would trade all his goods, his house, his animals, anything at all in exchange for such treasure. But the stranger shook his head slowly. He said that the gold inside the chest could not be bought with ordinary things. Baraka frowned and asked what kind of price could be greater than all he owned. The stranger then looked down at the ground behind Baraka, where the evening sun stretched his shadow long across the earth. And the stranger said quietly, "I will take your shadow." Baraka stood still under the great baobab tree as the last light of the sun slowly disappeared behind the hills, and for a moment the world became quiet in a way that made even the wind seem to hold its breath. And although his heart beat fast inside his chest, his eyes were fixed only on the glowing chest of gold, because in that moment nothing else in the world seemed to matter more than the shining promise of wealth that lay before him. And even though a small voice deep inside him tried to whisper a warning that something about this trade was not right, Baraka pushed that voice aside like a man brushing away dust from his clothes, because his desire had already made its decision before his mind could think carefully. So without asking another question, and without thinking of the elders, the ancestors, or the meaning of such a strange request, Baraka agreed to the trade, and as soon as the words left his mouth the traveler lifted his hand slowly and spoke words that sounded old and heavy, like words that had been spoken long before Baraka was born. And in that quiet moment something strange began to happen, because Baraka felt a soft pulling sensation behind him, as if a gentle wind was trying to take something away, and when he turned his head slightly, he saw his own shadow begin to move, not as shadows normally do, but like a living thing that had decided to leave him. The shadow stretched and trembled, and then slowly lifted from the ground like smoke rising from a dying fire, and before Baraka could fully understand what was happening, that shadow slipped into the wooden chest, disappearing into the glow of the gold coins, and at once the chest shone even brighter than before, as if it had been waiting for that very moment to awaken fully. The traveler closed the chest and pushed it gently toward Baraka, and with a calm voice that carried no excitement and no surprise, he said that the trade was complete, and that Baraka should now take what he had asked for and go on his way. And Baraka, whose mind was now filled with nothing but joy and victory, quickly lifted the chest and felt its heavy weight in his arms, and to him that weight felt like success, like power, like the beginning of a new life where he would no longer be just a rich man but the richest man in all the lands he had ever walked. Without looking back, Baraka hurried along the road, his steps quick and eager, his heart dancing with dreams of how people would look at him, how they would respect him, how they would speak his name with admiration. And as night fell and the stars began to appear one by one in the sky, Baraka did not even feel tired, because his excitement carried him forward until he reached his home in Kijiji Chomwanga. That night, Baraka did not sleep as he usually did, because he sat inside his house with the chest open before him, staring at the gold coins as they reflected the soft light of his lamp, and he touched them again and again, letting them run through his fingers, listening to the soft sound they made as they touched one another, and in his mind he began to count all the things he would now have, all the power he would now hold, and all the people who would now look up to him. But when the morning came, and the sun rose slowly over the village, bringing with it the sound of birds and the smell of cooking fires, Baraka stepped outside his house with a proud smile on his face, ready to show himself to the world as a man of great wealth. Yet the moment his feet touched the warm earth and the sunlight spread across the ground, something felt wrong in a way he could not immediately explain. Because although he stood there in the full light of the sun, there was no shadow behind him, and for a brief moment Baraka did not notice, but the children playing nearby saw it first. The children stopped their games, and their laughter faded into silence as they stared at him with wide eyes, and one of them pointed with a trembling hand and whispered to the others, and soon their whispers became louder, and their eyes filled with fear, because in all their young lives they had never seen a man standing in the sunlight without a shadow. Baraka turned slowly, expecting to see his shadow following him as it always had, but when his eyes met the ground and found nothing there, a cold feeling began to rise inside his chest, a feeling he had never known before, and for the first time since he had taken the chest of gold, doubt entered his heart. Soon the whispers of the children reached the ears of the adults, and one by one the people of the village came out to see for themselves, and as they gathered at a distance, their faces showed not anger but fear, deep and quiet fear, because in the traditions of Kijiji Chomwanga, a shadow was not just a simple shape on the ground but a sign of a person's spirit walking with them, and a man without a shadow was a man who had lost something that could not easily be named or understood. The women pulled their children close, the men stepped back slowly, and even the animals seemed uneasy, as if they could sense something that was no longer right. And Baraka, who had once walked proudly among them, now stood alone in a circle of silence, holding all the gold he had ever wanted yet feeling smaller than he had ever felt before. Days passed, and the distance between Baraka and the people of the village grew wider, because no one came to trade with him, no one came to greet him, and no one sat with him in the evenings as they once had. And although his house was filled with gold, it became a place of emptiness, where even the sound of his own breathing seemed too loud, and the laughter that once lived in his home was replaced by a silence that pressed heavily on his heart. At night, when the village gathered around the fire and the elders told their stories, Baraka remained alone, listening from a distance, remembering how he once sat among them without fear, without shame, and with a heart that felt whole. And slowly he began to understand the weight of what he had lost, because gold could not speak to him, gold could not comfort him, and gold could not stand beside him in the sunlight. And so one night, when the moon was high and the village was quiet, Baraka walked slowly to the home of Mzijuma, his steps heavy with regret, and when he reached the elder he did not stand tall as he once did, but instead knelt down, lowering his head, and in a voice that carried pain and truth, he told the elder everything that had happened, from the moment he saw the glowing chest to the moment he realized his shadow was gone. Mzijuma listened without interruption, his face calm but serious, and when Baraka finished, the elder closed his eyes for a moment as if speaking silently to the wisdom of those who had come before him, and then he opened them again and said that some lessons in life are not given gently, but come through mistakes that leave a mark on the soul, and that if Baraka truly understood the value of what he had lost, then there was still a path he could follow to make things right. Baraka lifted his head with hope in his eyes, and the elder told him that he must return to the place where the trade was made, that he must face the traveler once again, and that this time he must speak not as a greedy man, but as a man who understands the true cost of his choices. So before the sun rose the next morning, Baraka left the village, carrying the chest of gold once more, but this time the weight in his arms did not feel like power, but like a burden, and as he walked across the land, through the same roads he had once traveled with excitement, he now walked with humility, thinking not about what he could gain, but about what he had lost and what he hoped to regain. And after many days of walking, when his feet were tired and his body weak, he finally reached the great baobab tree once again, standing strong and silent as it had before, and there beneath it sat the traveler, waiting as if he had known all along that Baraka would return. Baraka fell to his knees without hesitation, placing the chest of gold on the ground, and with a voice filled with honesty and sorrow, he begged the traveler to take back the gold and return his shadow, explaining that he had learned the truth that gold cannot replace the things that give a man his place among others, his peace within himself, and his connection to the world around him. The traveler looked at him for a long time, as if searching his heart for truth, and then slowly he nodded, opening the chest once more, and from within it the shadow emerged, soft and quiet like smoke, and gently returned to the ground behind Baraka, where it settled once again as if it had never left. And in that moment, Baraka felt something return to him that no gold could ever bring, a feeling of completeness, of peace, of belonging, and when he lifted his head again, the traveler and the chest were gone, leaving only the silent baobab tree and the sound of the wind moving through its branches. Baraka stood slowly, and when he turned and saw his shadow following him once more, he smiled, not with pride, but with understanding, and as he began his journey back to the village, he knew that although he had lost the gold, he had gained something far greater, something that would guide him for the rest of his life. And from that day forward, Baraka lived not as the richest man in the land, but as one of the wisest, and whenever the children gathered around the fire and asked for a story, the elders would tell them about the man who traded his shadow for gold, and they would remind them that while gold may shine brightly in their eyes, it is the heart, the spirit, and the wisdom within a person that shine the longest and never fade away. And so the storyteller would end by saying, "Story, story." And the children would answer, "Story." And the lesson would remain. Crescent moon.